Chris Tiger Stockbridge, now the president, or tomorrow the president of Council 93. You've come up through the ranks. A little bit about your past, maybe, where you've come through the union and how you've gotten here.
I was hired by the city of Boston originally in 1989. Back then, one of the first things they had you do was sign a union card. I was only 16 years old, and I worked some positions within the Boston Public Works Department. In 1992, I finally decided to go full-time. I took a position with the Code Enforcement Police for the city of Boston. And back then we were what you would call mayoral appointee. The mayor, you served at the pleasure of the mayor. They could hire or fire you. You had very few rights as an employee. As Mayor Menino became involved and took over for Ray Flynn, we started to notice through code enforcement that a lot of the other programs had union protection, that they were union shops. And we had a discussion with Tom Menino, and we said, we want to become a union shop. We're going to go out and actively seek a union. And at the time, we actually sat down, we spoke with the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association, which made a little bit of sense for us way back then. We were uniformed personnel, we were a special police department, we were licensed under them. We had conversations with SEIU, OPIU, there were a couple others that came in to talk to us. But then I met this guy, Bob Nazari, from AFSCME Council 93, and he came in and he says, you know, you'd work out perfect for us. And Bob and I had several conversations, we had coffee. He says, you know, you're going to have to get over 50% of your cards signed in your workplace before we could even finish talking to you. And I said, no problem, Bob. I said, give me the cards, and I went back to my office, and we had 100% of the cards signed in about 26 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and we went back and we started the process. Cindy McManus became talks for the first contract that we were ever going to sign with code enforcement. Myself, at the time, my brother Mike Mackin and Michael Santolo, we represented the code enforcement police officers, and we went in and we hammered out a contract with, at the time, Mayor Menino's administration. And I tell you, we got all kinds of things, and it instantly improved our salaries by almost 25%.
That's incredible. That's great work.
They lined us up with Boston Animal Control at the time, and we had a structured contract. We had all these different benefits that we just didn't realize, you know, that everybody else had. And the biggest thing that we now have is we had a seat at the table, and we were able to represent ourselves, and we had a voice.
So it sounds like you took the initiative at a very young age, and it seems like you had some understanding of what you were looking for, looking to gain, and you just took off and ran with it, of course, with a little bit of help. So then you got fully involved with AFSCME. You've been with us for how long now?
Boy, I think that first contract was signed in 1998, and we joined AFSCME Local 1631, which was assessing and animal control at the time, and they brought in the code enforcement police. And at the time, Neil McGonigal was the president, and Neil, when we joined on, they actually put us right into roles. My brother took over the position of vice president of Local 1631. I myself took over as a steward for 1631 code enforcement. And in the beginning it was overwhelming. You got all this stuff that you need to know, and you got to make sure that you're doing it right.
And you've got to find a support network, right? Nobody works alone.
Nobody works alone. But I tell you, we had a very tight-knit group in code enforcement at the time, and we all stuck together and we kept the same vision, and everybody had each other's backs, and it just took off from there.
Yes, and for your many years of working with AFSCME, you've come through the ranks. Have you held various other positions with the executive board here?
In Council 93, yes, but in my local as well, I rose to vice president after Mike Mack and my brother, again, he had gone on to work a career as senior, and Neil McGonigal would come to me and he says, I'd like you to step up and become the vice president of the local. And I said, sure. I says, you know, I'm willing to do whatever I have to do. I liked it, I had a passion for it. You know, I like to talk out issues, I like to work out issues, but I also like to fight for issues. And Neil, shortly after I became vice president, decided he was gonna move on to his career, and he went to actually go work for Council 93, and it left me into the position of having to take over the presidency of 1631. And when I very first did it, and I ran for my very first time, and I was elected by the full membership, I knew I needed a lot more knowledge than what I had, you know, currently going. And Council 93, it was actually great in that aspect because they put me into stewards trainings.
Right.
And I remember they put me into my
trainings.
very first treasurer's training. And after my very first treasurer's training, I said to myself, oh my God, we've been doing this all wrong, we're all going to jail. And
I've heard that sentiment before.
You know, I sat through my first treasurer's training and I was petrified, and they said, listen, you know, going forward, now you know the right way, and you know the right path. And we started to train all of our offices to make sure all of our offices, Council 93 stepped in to make sure that our stewards had steward training. They made sure that from my secretary to my treasurer to myself, that we had all the tools going forward that we needed to run our local more efficiently. And I tell you, when they say knowledge is power, that's no joke. Knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And it helps you guide your way through not only, you know, the running of your local, but grievances, unfair labor practices, and all the other things that are going to come your way. And they come fast and they come furious.
Yes, they do.
And, you know, people want their issues dealt with then and there. They don't want to wait.
Right.
And although some may feel that an issue isn't as big an issue to that person that day, but to that person who has the issue, that's their biggest, that's their biggest thing going on in their life at that moment, and they want it dealt with right away. And that's one thing I've always prided myself on, is you got to help somebody with an issue. Sometimes it's as simple as a phone call back. Sometimes you need to reach out to somebody, but that issue at that time, that's their life, and that's something that they're dealing with. And you got to take into account, no matter if you think it's big, small, or anything else, that's their issue, and they want it dealt with, and you owe them that.
Absolutely. It's great that you understand that. You know, some people don't, and like you say, the key things are information, and you want it to be the correct information. And as you say, you always want to stay in contact with someone when they have their issues going on until the point of resolve. So it's great that you're always doing that, following through. So, let's just get a little bit lighter here to close it up, and you know, kind of understand how you're a person here. I asked Charlie Owen, the president that's passing the torch to you, if he had a memory of, say, a favorite international convention that you've been to.
God, the internationals, I love them all. And I hate to sound cliche, and that, you know, I love them all, but I do. My first international I ever went to was in 2008. It was in San Francisco. And when you go for your first time, it's very overwhelming. There's so much going on, and it's everybody across the AFSCME family is there.
But it's great energy.
It's the energy is incredible, and when you get onto the floor, and it's just so much. You take your time, you go to the workshops, but you get to meet people from across the nation. You get to meet people that are in your job title in different states, different sectors, different, you know, and to hear the similarity of the problems and the issues, you'd be surprised how much we have in common with our brothers and sisters across, you know, the nation. And whether you're in New York, Chicago, you know, sometimes we take for granted that Massachusetts is a very union-friendly city, and
right.
You know, you really do. We're a state of, you know, Democrats who generally support our values, although sometimes we have to keep them in line too. But you talk to all your brothers and sisters from across the nation, and it's, you know, you'd be surprised how similar the issues are and what we fight against every day, and we're fighting against it together.
Yeah, and as you say, there are some states where just the political system is completely against you, and you're right, maybe in Massachusetts, that is one benefit we have is pretty much the support. So how about a couple other, a light one to end it up with? Do you have any favorite home meal? And how about a favorite restaurant that you like?
So for a favorite, I love to cook. and anybody who's watched my Facebook, you know I love to cook. One of my favorite things to do is I make a big breakfast every Sunday when I have the time to make it. And you know, I invite people over, or people will invite themselves over. And I get this from my mother, because my mother always had a big Sunday meal, and if we had to pull out tables and people sat in the den in the living room, and it's something that, you know, over the last few years I've understood why she's always done it. You love to have people around you. So as far as a favorite meal, and you know, I will put out a smorgasbord of everything that I can pull out of my cabinets on a Sunday morning to make a breakfast. But I am always going to be, you know, as far as a favorite meal, will still be Old Bay chicken, and there's a whole story that goes behind that. Forever and a day, I used to go into the baseball tavern when I was working at Fenway Park Red Sox teams, and I would get an order of Old Bay wings. And I always asked them what the secret ingredient to Old Bay was, and they never knew that it was just an Old Bay seasoning that they sold on the counters, but they were funny about it, and they would tell me it's a secret, we can't share it with you. And it wasn't until I was sitting with my brothers and sisters from Council 13 down in Pennsylvania, and they sprinkled this stuff on my chicken down there, and they says, wow, you guys have this special ingredient, this chicken I've loved my whole life. What is it? Because I don't know what it is, I don't know how to make it. And they take out this little can of Old Bay seasoning, and I said, you're kidding me. I said, I mean, they've hidden this from me for all these years. So I immediately called the owner of the restaurant, and I said, you bastard. I said, this stuff sold in Stop and Shop, and you guys never bothered to tell me what the truth was. And they laughed and laughed, and now I make that chicken all the time for myself. So that is my favorite home-cooked meal to make in an air fryer. It's just one of my favorite things to do. But any meal I can break bread with anybody is you know, my favorite. I just like to sit and talk. And, you know, I'm a very approachable, personable person.
I know that, yeah. Okay, so just to close up a little bit, now that you're stepping into the presidency, I know you're prepared for it, but do you have anything in mind for, say, the younger generation of people coming in? You have any real plans set, real thoughts on it?
It's funny you say that to me. In 1998, we joined the union. And, you know, I was working to get myself a little bit involved. But in 1999, our division had to handle the, Major League Baseball had the All-Star game in 1999. During the home run derby, Mark McGuire was at bat hitting his home run derby balls, and I ran into this guy in right field behind the, in front of the bleachers behind the bullpens. His name was Charlie Owen.
Okay.
And Charlie said to me, and I was a young kid back then, he says to me, you know, you guys just joined on, you know, make it a purpose to get involved. And here we are 24 years later, and Charlie's going away, but the best advice I was ever given was get involved and stay involved and learn the process and understand it. Don't ever take the union for granted. Don't. Right. I mean, that's the best advice I could give to the young kids out there that are coming up, that are, you know, one day going to take our spots, is get involved, stay involved, and get every bit of knowledge the union's going to give to you, because at the end of the day, that knowledge could not only save your ass, but it's going to save the members' ass. And you need to go to the tables knowing what you're talking about, knowing what you're dealing with.
All right, thank you. I think those are great final words for this. So we'll wrap it up with our local 1,700 members. This is Chris Tiger, Stockbridge, your new Council 93 president.
Thanks.
Good luck to you, and thank you.
And David, again, thanks for your service. And years ago, so you know, when David first wore this uniform to a Council 93 convention, I was a young kid, and you know, I asked him why. And he said to me, he says, it's important that people understand what Veterans Day is. And it was the first time that I had ever served in a union spot where I stood side by side with somebody wearing an actual uniform. And I have a lot of friends and family members who served, including my father and my uncle. And this really put it into perspective for me of, you know, they're out here and they're doing the jobs that we do every day. And I greatly, greatly appreciate it. I'm glad you're involved.
Great. Well, thank you, family members, for me. And again, good luck to you with the presidency. And we are always with you in solidarity.
Thank you.